Welcome to the Fit Woman Formula podcast, where we show women just like you how to reclaim your energy, rebuild your body, and step into you 2.0. I'm Coach Jonathan, founder and head coach of the Fit Woman Formula coaching program. This show is for women who are tired of starting over and ready to finally create results that last. Not just weight loss, but real confidence, a healthier relationship with food, a stronger mindset, and a lifestyle that finally lasts. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you enjoy podcasts. And if you're ready to learn more about how we can help you unlock the energy and confidence of your 20s while dropping 2+ sizes in the next 12 weeks, visit fitwomanformula.com. All right, let's get into today's episode. If you feel like you're constantly going back and forth with food, trying to be good during the week, then falling off, then starting over again, there's a reason for that. And it's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you don't want it bad enough. And it's not because carbs and sugar are the problem. Now, most women think that the problem is the food itself. They think if they could just cut carbs, they'd finally lose weight. Or, if I could just stay away from sugar, everything would fall into place. But the real problem is something most women don't even realize they're stuck in. This is what we call the food restriction cycle. Okay, so let me explain what this looks like. I want you to picture this for a moment. There are 4 parts of this. So the first part is the restriction. Then comes the obsession. Then is the overeating, followed up by guilt and shame. And it just keeps looping around. So you tell yourself, I'm going to get serious this time. I'm cutting carbs. I'm cutting sugar. I'm going to be perfect this week. And maybe you are for a few days. I don't know what perfect is, but maybe you're close to perfect for a few days or maybe even a week or two. You do really well. You feel in control. You feel disciplined. You feel like you're finally doing everything right. Then something starts to happen. You move into obsession. And food starts taking up a lot more mental space. You're thinking about it all day. The foods you told yourself that you can't have are the exact foods that you can't stop thinking about. Now, this is also what I call the white bear effect. So if I said right now, whatever you do, don't think about a white bear. Well, what are you thinking about? You're immediately thinking about this random white bear that I just brought up, right? But the same thing happens when you say, I'm not going to eat carbs or I'm not going to eat sugar. Or when you start this new diet, you have to cut out a whole food group. Those foods become the focus. And eventually, that leads to overeating. Now, this doesn't have to be a full-on binge. This can look different at different times. And I think that's one of the reasons that it confuses so many ladies. But it feels like you lost control. You eat past what you planned. Sometimes it's just a little bit. Sometimes it's to the point of where you're uncomfortable. But you eat past what you had planned. And you have more than you think you should. And it feels like you messed everything up. Then comes the biggest part of all this. This is the fuel of this entire cycle. Guilt and shame. This is really what drives everything. You feel bad. You beat yourself up. You tell yourself, I need to do better. I need to get back on track. Or I'll start over Monday. And what do? You go right back to the restriction. And the cycle just keeps repeating over and over again. This is where a lot of women get stuck for years. And it feels like it's your fault. It does feel like a discipline problem. It does feel like a motivation problem. You probably feel like there's something wrong with you, but that's not it. It's a system problem. You've been trained to think this way. And so again, because the restriction creates the obsession leads to overeating. The overeating leads to guilt, and the guilt pushes you back into the restriction. So when you look at this clearly, you start to see something really important. You start to really understand that it's not the food that's the problem. It's the restriction. And I know how backwards this all sounds. I know how counterintuitive this sounds, but that's exactly what's keeping you stuck. This is exactly what the flexible food blueprint, so the nutrition pillar of our program, is designed to solve. And instead of trying to fix this with more discipline or cutting more out, we fix it by removing the restriction and replacing it with structure. And what we're really trying to create here is what we call freedom with your food. because that is the only way to lose weight, keep it off, feel better, and actually enjoy your life. This is the only way that it works. I know how scary this can sound, especially if right now, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're right in the middle of this battle and you're thinking to yourself, well, God, if I you know, just let all the restriction go, then what's going to happen? It's going to get even worse. It's very unlikely it can get worse than it is right now. That would be my guess, based on hundreds and hundreds of conversations that we have with women every single week. And again, this has been over a decade plus that I've been doing this now. It's very unlikely that it's going to get worse than it is right now. So what does this actually look like? Well, we use something very simple. You see, everything that we do is based in common sense. This is the 80-20 rule. About 80% of your food comes from whole nutritious foods to support your energy and your goals. And about 20% comes from foods you enjoy, treats, meals out, pizza, ice cream, the things that make life feel normal. And again, you might be thinking, how am I supposed to lose weight eating foods like that? That's a good question. That's a really good question. This is where the structure comes in. We focus on two things. These are the two most important things. Everything else is noise. Calories and protein. That's it. We're not trying to micromanage everything. We're trying to create awareness and structure. So when you combine the 80-20 approach with focusing on calories and protein, that's what allows you to have flexibility and still get results. Because that's what you really care about. But this is what creates freedom with your food. Now, you hear a lot about calories, and there's a lot of debate around this, okay? So let's kind of clear some of this stuff up here. We've got to talk about calories because this is the most important piece when it comes to weight loss. And what you need to understand is it doesn't matter what diet you do. The reason that you lose weight on any diet is because of your calorie intake. So you can do keto, you can do low carb, Atkins, Mediterranean. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If the calories are in check, you're going to lose weight. Now, we need to look at this from two different perspectives, okay? The first is going to be for the majority of women out there. This is going to be, probably 85+% of you that are listening to this right now. And that's the women who are overeating. And I'm just going to call you out on this, okay? Because I think this is important. And again, I would rather be direct with you and have you maybe get a little annoyed with me or not listen to or watch this podcast again because you say, I don't like how direct Jonathan's being about some of this stuff. I get that. I do my best not to be too abrasive, but what I can't tolerate, what I don't think any of us should tolerate anymore is women getting stuck in this cycle. I'm not going to tolerate that, okay? Because I know what that leads to. And it's not just you're not losing the weight. It's that you're not showing up in your life the way that you should be. It's that you don't have the freedom that you should. So if you are overeating, and what I was going to say is if you say, I eat healthy, we got to look at that, ladies. We got to look at that. Everyone thinks they eat healthy. Everyone thinks they eat healthy. You need to look at the numbers behind the food. And if you are overeating, you need to be in what's called a calorie deficit. A calorie deficit simply means that you're burning more calories than you're eating. And when I say burning calories, it's not just through exercise. It's through even as I sit here right now and I'm speaking to you, I'm burning calories. And yes, it is really that simple. But now there's also another group of women. And we've been seeing more and more of this over the past several years. Women who have been dieting for a long time. Women who have been under eating and under fueling for years. Women who have been on and off diets for years. Maybe even on GLP-1 medications for a while. Maybe they've had weight loss surgery. Or maybe they've just been stuck in a cycle of constantly trying to eat less and they've hit a plateau. Now, this is where the importance of food tracking comes in. Because before you can make any decision about any of this, you need data. You can't be guessing about any of this anymore. This is why so many of you ladies are stuck. You have no idea what's really going on. And I can say that confidently because I did the same thing. I made a lot of assumptions. I eat healthy. There's no way I'm eating too much and all these things. You need to see what you're actually doing in black and white. You can't guess your way through this. You can't just wing it. This first step is about establishing a baseline. Now, let's talk about the ladies who undereat. I'm going to tell you, we're going to do a whole episode on this, and we're probably going to do multiple episodes on this because there's a lot that's really packed into this topic here. But if we find that you're undereating after establishing a baseline, this is where things get interesting because now the goal isn't to eat less. I want you to think about this because what I'm going to share with you is going to challenge everything that you think you know about what you should be doing or what you think you need to do to lose weight, especially if you know that you're undereating. The goal is to eat more. So we move you into what we call a priming phase because this is what happens. Over time, your metabolism adapts. And if you've been under fueling your body for a long time, your body is just adjusted. I like to use the analogy of an engine. If you've been giving your engine too little fuel for too long, that engine's just kind of sputtering along. It's really just doing the bare minimum to try to keep your basic bodily functions going. It's not worried about burning a lot more calories. It's not trying to burn fat or anything like that. You're burning fewer calories than you should be, even at rest. And just to be clear, because you hear a lot of this, a broken metabolism is not a real thing. That's something that you hear on social media all the time. That is not a real thing. But what is real is what's called metabolic adaptation. Your body just becomes more efficient. It slows things down. And to be clear, and again, I'm going to save most of this for another episode on plateaus. To be clear, if you're in a plateau right now, even if you haven't been chronically under fueling, as we find a lot of ladies are, let's just say you've been in a, moderate calorie deficit for a time, your metabolism is still going to adapt. It's still going to slow down. So what we need to do in these cases is gradually increase your calorie intake over time. And I know that sounds backwards because again, you've trained your brain to think, eating less is the way for me to achieve weight loss. But if you're stuck in this right now and you've been at this for a while, I just want you to think for a moment. I just want you to pause. If you know that you've been chronically undereating for a long time or undereating at all, and that is likely part of the problem, is it working? Are you losing weight? If you're listening to this, probably not. So I know it sounds backwards. I know it sounds a little bit scary even, the thought of eating more. But this is how we restore your metabolism. This is how we improve your energy. This is how we get your weight loss moving again. This is something that we see over and over. Now, I need you to think about this. When it comes to calories, the key is not to eat as little as possible. This is about eating the right amount. Truthfully, when it comes to optimal fat loss, we want you to be eating as much as possible while still getting results. Because when you're under eating, you're going to have lower energy. You're going to be hungrier. And what you're doing isn't going to be sustainable. I'll put it to you like this. Here's part of this that I want you to think about. For me, as a coach, when I see very fast weight loss, I don't like that. Typically, if I'm seeing more than maybe like 3 pounds a week, depending on, where someone is starting, because look, if some ladies are very heavy when they start, they're probably going to be dropping weight a little bit quicker, right? They have more weight to lose. But for most ladies that we're working with, if I'm seeing over like 3 or 4 pounds a week, that tells me something's off. That tells me something's off. When I'm speaking with ladies that are saying, oh gosh, I don't know why I can't lose weight, and they tell me that the last time that they were successful in losing weight, they lost 20 pounds in like a couple weeks or a month or something, I'm like, yeah, no wonder. What you're doing isn't going to be sustainable, and you're probably going to feel like crap in the process. Now, look, a lot of ladies push back on tracking. It might sound restrictive, but it's actually the total opposite. Tracking gives you clarity that you can eat foods that you enjoy and still lose weight. Without tracking, you don't fully believe that. You might hear it, but it's not really going to click until you see for yourself. And so what we need to do is, and again, this is what we're helping ladies do, is draw a direct line between eating ice cream or eating pizza or eating, something else they enjoy, and them seeing that they've eaten these foods over an extended period, and then drawing a direct line to the results that they're getting. Smaller sizes, scale dropping, better energy, stronger, looking better, feeling better, more confident. We need to draw a line between these 2 points. And again, it goes directly from tracking to the results. So tracking isn't there to restrict you. It's there to show you. It's there to prove to you that this works, that you don't have to restrict. Because once you see that, you stop fearing food. You stop labeling food as good or bad. You stop saying things like cheat meal, and you stop feeding the restriction cycle. That's how we break it. Now, this is also backed by a lot of research. I need you to know this isn't just Jonathan's opinion that I'm spewing to you here. When calories and protein are controlled, there's no meaningful fat loss advantage to cutting carbs. I want you to hear that again. When you're looking at calories and protein, and those are in check, you're in a calorie deficit, or you're eating enough, right? You're fueling your body better now to get things rolling, and you're eating a sufficient amount of protein, there is no advantage to cutting carbs. People can lose weight still enjoying foods they love as long as they stay consistent. Not perfect, consistent. Now, this is what this looked like for Sarah after her second baby. She'd actually gained close to about 50 pounds. And her energy was extremely low. This was exhaustion, okay? She was still breastfeeding. And I mean, look, we were working together not long after this baby came along. It was basically at I think maybe the 6 or 7 week mark. It was right after she got cleared for activity, okay? Because she was thinking that exercise needed to be a really big part of this. So her energy was low. Her cravings were extremely high. She was hiding in baggy clothes, like a lot of ladies, and she thought she needed to be stricter. She thought she needed to cut carbs, to cut sugar, to do more. But she already had one kiddo, and now she's got another one. None of that fit her life. So we simplified everything. And again, it really required some trust on her part. But what we did is we focused on her food. We had her walking a few times a week. We built a plan around her life. No gym, no cutting carbs, no extremes. And again, that required trust because it felt too simple. But within a couple weeks, her energy started to improve. Her cravings started to come down. And she started to get something that is invaluable. And this is really what we're trying to help ladies to kind of grasp onto when they get started with us. She started to have hope. And over time, she lost about 24 pounds. She dropped 4 clothing sizes. She got her energy back. She started wearing her pre-pregnancy clothes again. One of the most exciting things by far that she was working towards is that she was engaged and she was able to wear a beautiful wedding dress. And this is the biggest thing that she said. It felt easy. That's when you know it's going to last. So here's a big takeaway for all of this. You don't need to cut more foods out. That's part of the problem. You need to stop restricting them because the restriction, again, is what's keeping you stuck. And, I mentioned a moment ago with Sarah that she said this felt easy. That is the biggest challenge for the ladies that we coach. Because again, you've been trained to think this has to be hard. This has to be miserable. If it doesn't feel like I'm just grinding away every moment, holding on for dear life to this diet that I'm trying to stick to, then it's probably not working. And ladies, that's just not true. That doesn't mean it's not going to require any work, because I don't want to come off as some guy that's just mansplaining to you saying, you're not trying hard enough. That's not what I'm saying. You're probably trying too hard, doing the wrong things, too much restriction, trying to cut everything out, falling into all of this stuff that you've been hearing for most of your life. And at the core of that is it less is better. And that's just not true. Not for sustainable weight loss, not for transforming your body, not for better energy, not for better confidence, none of it. Now, on the next episode, we're going to talk about the coaching and support side of this, because knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently are two very different things. And that wraps up today's episode of the Fit Woman Formula podcast. I hope today's conversation helped you take one more step toward reclaiming your energy, rebuilding your body, and stepping into you 2.0. If you found this helpful, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you left a quick rating or review. It helps more women discover the show. Ready to unlock the energy and confidence of your 20s while dropping 2+ sizes in the next 12 weeks without restricted diets, useless supplements, or living in the gym? Visit fitwomanformula.com to learn how we've helped hundreds of women just like you. I'll see you in the next episode.